welcome to this week's episode of Gin and Sin. It's Patty here, if you haven't guessed by the volume yet.
You are speaking softer.
I'm trying, because people told me, one of my friends said that when she listens to our episodes, she has to turn it down when I talk.
This is brilliant. I think everyone does it. Reach out, let us know if that's what you do.
I can't help it though.
It's just your voice. It's just the way you are. It's fine.
Yeah, it's just the way I am.
And unfortunately, we don't match that, so we are a bit quieter. So
Well,
it's
thanks-
hard to no, but
Thanks for accepting the blame. Guys, you should do better.
it's hard to pick volume when you listen to us.
I think I'd rather be loud than quiet, because people are always like, oh, you're really quiet. I can't hear you. I'd rather be heard than people not being able to hear me.
That's
Thank
true.
you.
Yeah.
Yes, that's what we're going for. Well, this week, on this week's episode, we are doing another unsolved case. Sorry, Joe.
Yay! Joe's favourite.
Yeah, Joe's favourite. Yeah, so it's another unsolved case. Sorry about that.
I'm leaving.
Bye. We'll just have to find a replacement. Auditions will be held Tuesday evening.
No one can replace me. No one brings what I bring to the table. Last minute reports.
One of a kind.
Nothing written down. You know, professionals.
Right. So, it has been 24 years since the awful murder of Billie-Jo Jenkins. And the country is still very much divided when it comes to who killed her and how it happened.
Oh.
Have you guys heard of Billie-Jo Jenkins?
No, I don't think so.
I might have, but not just the name.
Yeah, you might when I talk about it a little bit later. But later, right now, I'm going to talk about it now, actually, not later. So, as always, I'll present you with the facts to the best of my knowledge and the best of the research that I could do. However, I won't really maybe make decisive, this is what happened, because people involved are still alive and I don't want to get sued, you know. This is all alleged.
This episode is allegedly
not happening.
factual.
Yeah.
Allegedly.
But it's up to you guys.
We can't afford to get sued, can we, really?
No, absolutely not. This podcast is making no money. We have nothing.
We're losing money, if anything.
So it'll be up to you guys to sort of make your own judgments and make your own decision. We can speculate, but
Widely.
but we won't know. Yeah. So Billie-Jo Jenkins, also known as Margaret Jenkins, but was called Billie-Jo, was born on the 29th of March.
Weird, yeah.
Yeah, well, because Billy was after her dad, Bill. So I guess they just called her Billie-Jo.
But her name is Margaret, so.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know.
We won't go into it. We'll just accept it for what it is.
It's just a nickname.
I'm going to be calling her Billie-Jo. Okay. So
Billie-Jo.
she was brought up in East London. Sadly, her childhood was
English ones.
yes, yeah.
I was thinking American for some reason.
Yeah, I thought it was.
It just sounds like an American
purely
name.
assumed.
Yeah. Billie-Jo. Yeah.
No, it's English.
Okay.
Okay.
Definitely allegedly then.
Her childhood was not the easiest. Her father was imprisoned, and she didn't really know much of him, and her mother really struggled to cope on her own with 4 children.
Yeah, I would.
Yeah,
Definitely.
back in 1983 as well, like it wouldn't have been the easiest.
Good old Thatcher years, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. So everything was like so much harder
Shit.
back then as well. So Billie-Jo was placed in foster care with her brother from the age of 9, with Sean and Louise Jenkins. No relation, just happens to be the same surname.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, they're not related.
Oh well.
Yeah, I know, it's strange, isn't it? So she moved with the family to Hastings on the East Sussex coast, into quite a big Victorian house where she attended Helen's Wood School, and she was well liked, and she was known to be a hard-working student. One of her neighbours actually gave a quote, and it goes, Billie-Jo was a young lady in the old-fashioned sense of the word. It was rare to meet a young girl with such manners. So she was quite well liked. She was polite, and considering everything she's been through, she's kind of really owned her stuff and was just quite a nice person. On the 15th of February 1997, the day started like any other day for the family. Lewis, Esther and Maya. Esther and Maya were Sean's and Lewis's children. They had 4 of their own kids and they fostered 2. They went out shopping for the day while Sean, Lottie and Annie went to a local DIY store. They first went to pick up Lottie from her rehearsal and then went to the DIY store with Sean. Billie-Jo opted to stay home alone. At that point, she was 13 years old.
Oh, I was going to ask.
Yeah, so she decided she wanted to stay home alone and paint the patio doors. At approximately 3:30 p.m., 13-year-old Billie-Jo was found battered to death with an 18-inch metal tent peg, and she was found by her foster dad, Sean. The killer left behind the weapon, which they left by her head. And that was taken from the tool shed at the bottom of the garden. And Billie-Jo was not sexually assaulted, but the attack looked frenzied and it looked very brutal.
Just sounds awful.
Yeah, so one could argue because the weapon wasn't brought to the scene, was it an opportunistic murder? Were they,
argued?
Yeah.
Yeah.
When Sean got back home with Lottie and Annie, he noticed that something was wrong. He went into the house and he noticed Billie-Jo on the floor in a pool of blood, and he went and tried to what he said, he went and tried to like pick her up to see if she was okay, or like, just move her.
Yeah.
And then
check if she was alive. Basically.
Yeah. After that, they contacted the police, and the police came obviously very quickly. And the murder inquiry was led by Detective Superintendent Jeremy Payne.
So just quickly, so she was found in the house.
Yeah, well, so she was outside,
yeah,
kind of, but yeah, like she was found at the place where she was murdered, which was in the house in the garden by the patio doors.
Oh, so she was outside in the garden.
Yeah, so she was kind of like, because she was painting the door.
She was painting, wasn't she? Yeah.
Oh, right, I see.
So she was kind of like,
for some reason I thought fence. That's why I was surprised she was inside.
At what point?
No, you
did
said
I say
fence? Yeah, it's fine, but in my head, fence. So.
Well, it wasn't, it was patio doors for anyone that was listening.
Colour blue, because that's what I'm picturing too.
I don't know actually. It doesn't say.
It could
not
be
very relevant.
Yeah.
At the time, police had very few suspects. As you would, it was just very odd. It seemed very bizarre.
So presumably the family.
Well, although Hastings was known in the summer, it was seen as this idyllic, like amazing place for tourists. But a lot of the locals said that during winter it turned very dingy, and there was a lot of poverty and a lot of just homelessness and very strange people around.
I've never been to Hastings. I don't know what it's. I've never been to Hastings. I don't know what it's like.
No,
it's obviously where the Battle of Hastings is, isn't it, in 1066? So I suppose they've got a lot of tourism because of that, I'm assuming. But
yeah,
and it's probably not. It's
like an historical town.
Now,
yeah.
That was in the 80s. So.
Yeah. And Billie-Jo was murdered in February, so it's still winter time, isn't it? So it's still there would be very little tourism back then.
Yeah.
So so they had very few
You're in your head now. That's what's happening.
So the police, like I said, had very few suspects. One of the suspects that they thought may have been responsible was a man that had mental health problems, and he was spotted nearby the house. Well, at the time, I guess the stigma with mental health and stuff wasn't.
He was crazy, so he did it.
Yeah, basically.
They had nothing else to go on, did they? There was no.
No, exactly. No. Well, Shan informed the police that the family had actually been plagued by an unknown prowler in the preceding months. He told the police that around 2 weeks before Billie-Jo was murdered, he had disturbed a man in their garden. And a couple of weeks before that, he had spotted a man staring at the family's home from Alexandra Park, which is across the road. It was directly opposite the house. The family had also told the police that on several occasions their gate was opened, so they closed it, they came back home, the gate was opened, which kind of led them to then install security lights.
Okay. No, I was just
Someone
wondering
sort of-
how secure was the gate? Was it like?
Yeah. So someone's like sort of scouting the area, really.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, it was enough for them to consider it strange. So
Yeah.
I presume that the gate was kind of like able to be locked well. So then when it wasn't locked, I don't know if they locked it with a key or if it was just one of those with a bolt or whatever that you could open yourself. So before the murder happened, Billie-Jo had also allegedly told her friends that she was being followed since around Christmas time. She described the man to her friends in like great detail. He was a white man, estimated to be in his 40s or 50s, and always wore a leather jacket. And the description matched the one that Shan gave to the police of the same man watching the family home from Alexandra Park.
Okay.
Billie-Jo also received a number of strange calls where the person on the other hand hung up before speaking. Sometimes, occasionally, she'd get a phone call where someone had said something. So DSI Payne.
So who's that information coming from? Is that her
So
friends
that's
then?
her friends
Okay.
that had told her, that had told the police.
All of
She
that.
didn't really confine in her parents, her foster parents at the time. But she
Did they
had
have a
confined-
close relationship, like her and the foster parents? Do you know?
Well, she was quite happy in the house. She fitted in really well. She got on with everyone.
Okay.
And she was there since she was 9, so she was with them only 4 years.
Okay, that's quite a long time though.
Yeah,
To
enough to
be
build a bond,
comfortable,
isn't
yeah.
it?
At that
And
age,
her
yeah.
brother lived with them as well.
Okay.
Maybe she was afraid that if she said anything or caused any sort of issue, she might be moved on.
Yeah,
And
that's very
separated
true.
from
Yeah,
her.
that's very true. So there was perhaps that motive from not actually saying anything.
Yeah.
So DSI Payne stated that, and I quote, she has told her parents and friends she felt she was being followed and had spotted a man on some occasions. It appears that she felt this man was paying particular attention to her for some reason. So she told her parents that she felt she was being followed. She hadn't mentioned any of the other stuff, any of the phone calls, strange behaviour.
Do you think the friends maybe embellished that aspect of it potentially after she was murdered?
Perhaps.
Yeah, they could have done.
I mean, they're 13-year-olds, so I guess they may have. Yeah.
Potentially.
Got a bit carried away, maybe.
Yeah.
Because if she went as far as to tell them she was being followed, then why not mention the phone calls maybe?
Yeah, but I guess it depends on what level did she tell them. Because it doesn't actually state. Did she just say, "Oh, weird man followed me today," or did she say, "On repeated occasions, a weird man had followed me several times over several days. He's always there."
Presumably, the police would check their phone records, so they would have known either way, really.
Yeah. So Sharon
Lois.
Sharon Lois would appear on national television to appeal for help in finding the killer of their daughter. Lois could barely contain her emotion as Sean read from a prepared statement, and I quote, "As a family, we are totally devastated. We do not understand why or what the motive was, but we are working closely with the police in the hope that the killer will be found and that we can eventually piece our lives back together over the coming years." Billie-Jo was loving and supportive of her 4 sisters. She was also buoyant, articulate, quick to learn, loud and fun-loving. As parents, our sadness drives us to work closely with the police to find her killer. We, therefore, appeal to anyone who thinks they have any information about this crime to contact the police. So just a few days after the murder, a 44-year-old man was arrested in connection. the man who had been arrested had a large birthmark on his face and was said to be the same man who had been spotted in the area asking about accommodation shortly before Billie-Jo was attacked. However, the man was released from the police custody into secure psychiatric care, and he was ruled out as a suspect. Don't know why, no reasons for it. Could be you just
lack of evidence. Yeah.
And then a couple of days after that, a second man was arrested in connection with Billie-Jo's murder, but the following day he was released from police custody.
Do they have any evidence to arrest these people, or do they just?
I guess they just go on what people say.
Yeah.
Like, we've seen this strange man, and then they take them and question them. But obviously, just because you've been arrested, I guess, doesn't mean you.
No, but like instead of just taking them and questioning them, they're arresting them and questioning them. So it's a bit like.
Yeah, that's true.
They can hold them for like a certain amount of time, though, can't they?
Oh yeah, if
is
they
it
arrest them,
48 hours?
Yeah.
They have 48 hours before they have to release them if they don't charge them.
Yeah.
Well, it didn't really take long for the police to begin suspecting Billie-Jo's foster dad, Sean.
Yeah.
On the 22nd of February, the police tested Sean's clothes and discovered over 139 microscopic spots of blood on his shoes and clothes. On the 24th of February, Sean was soon arrested and interviewed in the presence of a solicitor. And then a further deeper background check had shown that Sean had lied about his educational qualifications to secure his job as deputy headmaster of William Paker School. And released on bail on the 25th of February. However, he was clearly told that he had to leave Hastings, so he went to live with his parents in Wales. At the same time,
why does he have to leave?
Because I guess, well, at this time it's not really that clear to like the general public, right. But obviously he had 4 of the daughters in the house and Lois was there, but it will soon become apparent why.
All right. Okay.
At the same time, the police had decided to tell Lois about the blood splattering, and on the 7th of March, Lois had made a statement alleging violence from Sean. Abuse, domestic abuse. And well, basically the reason why they didn't want him to go back to Hastings is because he had 2 daughters with him at the time of arrival at the house, and I think they didn't want him to interfere with their statements, regardless of the fact that, as you find out later, police did. But
remove him from the village or the
basically town. Remove him from the crime scene and the family and like people that could potentially, like the witnesses, because his alibi are his 2 daughters that were with him at the time.
And how old were the daughters?
They were very young. One was 7, and I'm not sure how old the other one was.
So young. Okay.
But quite young, like they weren't. So on the 14th of March, Sean was rearrested and was actually charged with murder. During the trial, the prosecution suggested that Sean had beaten Billie-Jo to death after a day of frustrating and irritating events, but said that the true motivation may never be known. So basically, they were like, I don't know, but he did it.
He did it, but we don't know why.
Something, well, and unless he'll tell us, we'll never know.
Yeah. So Camden Pratt QC said that after killing Billie-Jo, Sean had then gone to a local DIY store with his 2 daughters in an attempt to distance himself from the murder before pretending to find Billie-Jo's body when he returned home.
So presumably it was just him and her in the house when he was killing her.
Well, no, because he only went to pick up one of the daughters with the other one.
Well, the other one was just there.
Well, that's the prosecution's case. The case against Sean was built on the blood splatter found on his clothing, because they were like, well, if you didn't do it, how's the blood there?
Yeah, but
why would there be blood there?
So it's just quite small. Would it be more?
According to the prosecution, the blood resulted from an impact splatter which had come from Sean hitting Billie-Jo with the iron 10 peg. However, at the trial in 1998, the defence claimed that the behaviour of the police in relation to Annie and Lottie indicated a plan to influence the children to give evidence hostile to their father. So they basically took Annie and Lottie, who were the ones that would have been Sean's alibi, that he couldn't have possibly done this, that there was no time in between, and basically sat them down without a social worker in the room, which wasn't allowed, with the mother.
Oh, with the mother.
But obviously the mother at that point knew that there was blood splatter, so she was like, well,
do whatever.
That's a bit weird. That's suspicious. And then they sat Annie and Lottie down and basically told them, we found blood splatter on your father's clothes. He lied about his CV for his headmaster and basically painted this picture of Sean as being this horrible person, which could have then influenced their decision to change their story. And Annie did. She changed her story.
Really?
Yeah. So they also tried to persuade Lois of her husband's guilt on the 26th of February 1997. So when they told her about the blood splatter, they were trying to convince her that it was him, but
it must have been him. Yeah. So otherwise, why? But didn't he try to see whether she was alive when he arrived at the house?
Well,
could have got the blood on him then, but then
we'll get to that. Oh. So basically, the behavior of the police meant that then the evidence of the two critical alibi witnesses was being improperly influenced, and that Sean could not have a fair trial, because no matter what they now say, their picture of Sean has been tainted. So they're never now going to give a true, and there was no social worker present during that, so it just wasn't very ethically.
Just like a biased account, really, isn't it? It's going to be.
Exactly. The judge rejected the defence's points because there was no evidence of bad faith,
no social worker, no one's actually trained to be in the situations and help out was present in the questioning, so that's dodgy.
Completely.
He further refused to infer that the police had brainwashed Lois into believing her husband had committed the murder. The judgment addresses the issues raised by the defense and concludes there was nothing unworthy or shameful about the conduct of the police, basically saying that they haven't done anything wrong, they didn't conduct themselves in an unprofessional manner, they didn't force anyone's hand to say anything, and they weren't trying to convince anyone of anyone's guilt.
So basically they were just sitting there and letting them come to those conclusions.
In the judge's eyes, they were completely impartial, and
no coercing at all.
No coercing, exactly. No tampering with witnesses or anything.
Sounds legit.
I mean, obviously, this is all alleged. I don't want to get sued. However, this was online, so
it's true.
Must be true. According to the defense, however, the blood splatter had come from air being released from Billie-Jo's lung as Sean moved her after finding her body in the garden. So what you said, he went to move her, and they said that basically it was like a last
death
bubble of blood on her. Yeah, basically a bubble of blood on her nose, and then it splattered, and that's how it got there.
Which is like it could have been.
Yeah, it happens, doesn't it? Yeah.
You've got two versions, and they potentially, but both of them are very possible. So
yeah. The defense would then go on to present an experiment to try and show that Sean could have been sprayed with Billie-Jo's blood. However, the prosecution didn't like that, and of course they called upon Dr. Ian Hill to counter this experiment, and he said, and I quote, quite unrealistic, because the amount of air they used was much larger than for a normal adult breathing.
Yeah, but then again, it's just one opinion of one man, really. You should have several people, several experts giving their opinion, because if you just find the right one, they will back up.
Exactly.
Because there's been cases where they call in these experts, and then it turns out that they actually have no fucking idea what they're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. Or you have prosecution with one expert, defense with the other, and they've got completely different point of views on the evidence.
Exactly, because they'll essentially tell you what you need them to tell you. It's well,
opinions, basically. It's not.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, though, Sian did get convicted of the murder on the 2nd of July 1998, even with the very, 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 very slim evidence. But again, we have to remember that I guess the court's job is to prove guilty or not guilty, not to find the truth. So
was it?
But the evidence was very
Was it trial by jury?
Patchy.
It was trial by jury, and he was sentenced to life imprisonment. In 1999, Sian appealed his conviction on the basis that the forensic evidence that was used to prosecute him was inaccurate, and the verdict therefore should be squashed. He lost the appeal, but again in 2003, after a 2-year investigation handled by the Criminal Case Review Commission, the case was transferred back to the Court of Appeal. The Criminal Case Review Commission noted that the jury did not hear from Simon's other daughters who corroborated his story.
Oh
yeah.
Only 2 youngest were interviewed. That's ridiculous.
During the original trial, police had been told by Lewis, who at this point had divorced Sian, that their 4 daughters had changed their original stories, which backed up their father's denial of murder. While at 2003 appeal, Annie and Charlotte's testimony supported the defence's case that their father would not have had time to commit the murder. During the retrial, the forensic evidence from the first trial was scrutinised, and forensic experts testified that the blood found on Sian's clothing could have gotten there as he comforted Billie-Jo during her dying moments.
Well, imagine another expert, another opinion.
Exactly. It just goes to show, though, doesn't it, that you can find what you want to find.
Yeah, because it's, the evidence
completely.
Not fact. It's based on experience and, again, their opinion, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, you can, to an extent, test it or whatever, but it's still...
If you're comforting someone who's covered in blood, you're going to get blood on you.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just going to happen.
The basis of Dr. Ian Hill's opinion had come from the fact that there was only a blockage in Billie-Jo's airway. However, it had since been discovered that the blockage was in fact in her upper airways, so the breath was possible and it could have happened. After a 3-month retrial, the jury was unable to reach a verdict, and they were split. They couldn't decide guilty or not guilty. And a second retrial was called in April 2005, and in February of 2006 they were too unable to reach a verdict because this case split so many people.
So what do you do when you can't reach a verdict?
Well, Sian Jenkins was declared in consequence not guilty, and the Crown Prosecution Service would subsequently formally acquit him of the murder.
Yeah, that sounds like the...
So basically, because they couldn't make a decision,
and then
I think the judge then stepped in and
that he was.
But you can't make a decision without beyond like a reasonable doubt or whatever it is. And
then you're not guilty.
Exactly. Yeah. So I guess in either case, the jury was not convinced that he did it, but they were also not convinced that he didn't do it.
Yeah. It's just not enough evidence either way.
No, there isn't. Yeah. 2 years later, he applied for compensation for wrongful conviction and 6 years of imprisonment. And he, quotes, he did an interview with The Guardian in which he said that he was asked about the compensation, in which he says, just to be clear about this, I was actually declined compensation over 2 years ago. So why this should have become an issue now is a mystery. But in any case, I think the Ministry of Justice needs to get its thinking straight, bearing in mind that the criminal justice process has no means of providing for proof of innocence. Appeal court judges are not looking to see if the appellant is innocent or guilty, but simply if the verdict is safe or unsafe, which, again, they're not looking to see if you've done it or not, it's whether
there's another evidence either way. Yeah, which makes sense.
Yeah. So over the years, many people have called for the murder case to be reopened, especially considering the advancements of DNA technology. Like, I think they could do so much more now if they kept it, though.
Depending what evidence they collected, whether they collected everything properly, and again.
Yeah, because they could have not. They may have just not. I mean, they haven't done a very great job.
Did they stop it just like as soon as they focused on the foster father? Did they stop the
Just stop investigation into anyone else.
And they were just finding the case just based on that one suspect.
Yeah. So if there was anything that could have led to someone else, they would have missed it because
they've missed it.
Missed it, or allegedly, potentially, if they were so convinced he did it, they might have just get rid of it. Allegedly. This is my speculation only, and I'm basing it on my.
They're just theorizing.
And not the facts that were presented.
Please don't sue us.
Allegedly.
While the case remains unsolved, Sussex police have said that if any information may arise, they would ascend and investigate if necessary. And in the interview that Sean gave on the 19th of August 2010 with The Guardian, he said, "How can I prove my innocence when the criminal justice system does not provide for proof of evidence of innocence? I never appreciate the extent of the role the media would play in these things, how crime is reported and how people are presented, through photographs, through actions, through words. You realise you have an uphill battle. But I still believed I was going to be acquitted and didn't prepare myself for anything else."
So when he was acquitted, was he like completely exonerated?
Yes.
So it's not on his record
No.
or anything. So it doesn't stop him having a normal life.
No, so he's since remarried.
Okay, that's good. And has a job. He can get a job.
Yeah.
Potentially didn't lie on his CV again.
Allegedly.
I said potentially didn't lie on his CV. I just don't understand how that counted against him. Like everyone lies. I mean, that was a bigger lie
though, isn't it? Like become a deputy headmister in a school.
You try to get a job any means necessary if you have to. You have a big family to provide. So
that is quite a big thing to lie about, though, that particular.
Yes, it is, but I can understand why potentially he did. Because he had 4 kids plus 2 fosters.
Yeah.
Foster kids, so wouldn't count it against him as a person.
This is why you're the Slytherin.
Yes! Me and Emily are like, no, this is not okay. He lied, shouldn't have lied. Just like, well, but maybe.
And I'm proud.
I guess with them saying that obviously he lied, they discredited anything he said because he'd already lied once. So I guess the prosecution's idea was like, well, he could lie again.
But it's not like he lied to them. He lied for a job.
But that's quite a big thing to lie about. So then
it's a big job as well. Like it's not just like, oh, I lied to get a job at the corner shop. It's like I lied so people could get an education, essentially. I'm like,
maybe he wasn't qualified for it, but
then he didn't take the job.
No, but he didn't get fired, so he was good at it potentially.
Well, the lying.
No,
well, you don't know. We don't know if he was good at his job. Actually, well, really rubbish.
He was fired, so.
Well, he was after.
Well, yeah, but that was. I think they didn't have a choice. He's not going to turn up. He's in prison.
So, even though there's quite a lot of people that still believe that Sean is guilty, there is also just as many that think that he isn't guilty. It's just a weird case because
there's just not enough evidence
either way. There isn't. I think the police rushed. They saw some bits fit, and they were like, "Right, that's our man. We don't need to look for any further evidence. We'll prosecute him based on the blood splatter." And I mean, they did, but they didn't count on the fact that
it's that classic thing of making the evidence fit him, isn't it? And not
just looking at it objectively.
Where's the evidence taking us? It's this evidence is going to fit this guy,
and that's we have him here. And now let's make it fit.
Yeah.
So obviously, while researching the case, I rummaged the internet, and obviously, it's not. It's not as big of a case as like Ted Bundy or whatever. There isn't that many.
I've never heard of this case.
Yeah, so there isn't that much more detail in it because obviously this is all we have. This is all the police had. There are, however, some noteworthy and strange details in this case. And while I was prowling the internet, that's what I was going to say, and I went on a tangent. I came across a Reddit post by the Radio King Queen, and these are actually some of their theories, which I partially, Could agree with.
So public with speculations.
Yeah, basically, allegedly public speculation.
Basically what we're doing right now.
Basically what we do all the time.
Yeah.
In every episode.
Fantastic. I'm here for it.
So one of the first things that would be very strange is Lois's testimony. So she, obviously at the time of her testimony, she believed that he committed the murder because of the blood splatter and because of the coercion by the police, and has accused him of being a liar and a violent abuser during their marriage. And although Sean has admitted to lying in the past, he has also said in his book that Lois's stories about her are untrue and that she herself is an unreliable woman who poisoned his daughters against him during the case. And his former colleagues and students, they acted as his character witnesses, and said that he was calm and likable and that he was extremely patient and he never lost control of his emotions. Although saying that, I mean, Ted Bundy was probably also a very charming guy.
Well, yeah, he definitely was, wasn't he?
Yeah, they don't know what's going on in the house. Outside of the house, everyone keep your composure.
It does seem a bit strange that his own wife would turn against him so easily.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I think
just one like shaky evidence and like,
yeah, it's really strange, but you can kind of get it. Like, she's got 4 kids to protect, 5 kids to protect. Like, her husband's been arrested for murder.
If there's any chance like that he did do it,
yeah, you wouldn't put him around the kids, really, would you? And like, if the police are telling you, we know he did this.
And I can't imagine the police are all like lovely, nicey about it as well.
Exactly.
Probably quite brutal. Allegedly.
Yeah.
I'm not pointing any fingers.
Yeah. But I guess we'll never know who's telling the truth here, whether it's Lois or Sean, because they're both, there's always like 2 sides of the story, and then there's the truth.
It's because obviously she didn't report the abuse at the time before the murder for her own reasons, which is, you know, fine. And then her saying he did abuse her, and then obviously there's no proof of that, and then now he's saying he didn't.
Exactly. Like, is she just bitter? Not bitter, but is she a woman scorned, you know, like she's heartbroken because Billie-Jo's dead and her husband could have done it, and she just needs to blame someone in order to cope with her grief.
Like, and then potentially, you know, having people believe that she's a victim too.
Yeah.
So she had nothing to do with it, and, you know, she married a monster.
Or is she telling the truth?
Or is she telling the truth? You know.
Yeah.
Either way.
I suppose if he had come forward and said, "Oh, I completely believe everything he's saying is the truth," the public could have, you know, completely turned against her, and she's tarnished with the same brush as he is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I agree. She would have then been a victim of a witch hunt that she's staying by a murderer.
Yeah.
That's very true.
I mean,
actually. Didn't see it from that point, but that's a good point. There is also another point. So the potential home intruder. Obviously, we know that in the weeks leading up to the murder, like, the gate was open a few times, and he's seen a weird man in the garden, and there's been like weird break-ins around the area and stuff. And they installed the security lights, and Lottie said that it was possible that the side gate to the house was open when she, Annie, and their father returned home that day, which couldn't be certain. It could have been open.
She was gone, so who knows what she remembers.
Yeah.
So is it possible that it was an opportunistic killer?
It could be, but didn't we say that?
Was it a burglar who panicked when he saw Billie-Jo because he thought there was no one home?
It's just a weird thing to do, though, to like a kid, isn't it? Like,
yeah, but
you're
also,
a burglar.
Did you said that the weapon came from
the tool shed?
And she was painting the patio door. So potentially, what the robber,
the burglar.
The burglar. I can't say that.
The person that was going to steal things.
The intruder.
The
intruder. So he would came from the patio door.
Wow.
And then went to the shed to get the.
No, went from the patio door. Why was he going from the patio door? If he came in to the garden, have you been listening to what I've said? If he came in through the garden, he would have gone in through the garden gate. Where is the garden gate here? It's right next to the tool shed. I'm not saying it was right next to the tool shed. but it would have been at the back of the garden, because that's where garden gates usually are. So, I mean, maybe it wasn't, I don't know. But if she was painting the doors, the shed may have been opened because she needed stuff from the tool shed.
But you said she was
shed.
painting the patio door, so wouldn't he not come in if he saw someone was home? Why?
Well, that's
why
why
did he? Why did he go straight to the tool shed, murdered her,
Well,
and then not
saw
take
her.
anything from the house?
Well, we don't know if they did.
Maybe he just wanted to murder her. Maybe that was his whole thing.
Or unless he just came to murder her, but like we don't know whether anything.
I see your point. If
house.
he came to do some thieving, robbery, why would he go in, see, oh shit, someone's there? Like if you saw that, you'd be like, I better retreat. You would be like, but then also she's only a 13-year-old girl.
But then you don't know, like not adults at home.
Unless he was watching the house, saw people leave, and knew that their garden gate would be an easy access rather than going through the front door, but didn't anticipate someone else being there. I see your point.
As a robbery, I don't see that happening, but if he was just there to kill.
And if it was there, like these things, like it just for the murder, these things usually go hand in hand with a sexual assault as well, and there was no sexual assault, was there?
Yeah,
not always, but that tends to be
usually.
Yeah.
It would just be murder for the sake of murder, wouldn't it? Then really,
yeah.
Which doesn't. It's still awful. Obviously, I'm not saying.
Yeah, completely.
But it would just be there would be no sort of secondary reason for it. Well, that's one of the things. I didn't say it was perfect. It's just theories. Yeah, right. So the other thing I didn't mention throughout the whole report because I forgot. But
I thought you wanted to have a gotcha moment.
In Sean's book, The Man in the Hole, no, that's not his book. In his book, The Murder of Billie-Jo, Sean has shared his theory of the man in the hole. So after paramedics arrived at his house to try and help Billie-Jo, Sean was approached in his hallway by a man he assumed to be a plainclothes police officer or detective. The man offered him reassurances that his daughter would be okay, which he knew, so I'm not sure why he believed it, but several more police officers arrived, and while all their statements about the case are on file, Sean had found out that the police had no record of the man in the hole, and his police witness statements doesn't exist. While some regard the man in the hole to be fabrication of Sean's mind and himself, he believes that could be Billie-Jo's real murderer. His theory is that the man killed Billie-Jo, did not have time to escape the house before they returned home, and had no choice but to pretend to be a police officer in order to evade capture. And the man in the hole has never been seen or heard from again. So this one's pretty hard because this is literally no one else has seen this man. So it could just be Sean making it up, basically.
I mean, it's a good way to escape the scene, isn't it? If you ask.
Yeah, I guess it's quite ballsy, isn't it?
It is, because what if the police were like, well, who are you?
Yeah, but I guess everyone would have then concentrated on Billie-Jo, wouldn't they? Well, a former neighbour wrote to a former neighbour wrote to Sean to say that she remembered a local newspaper report about a passing motorist who saw an unidentified man leaving the house that afternoon, which would potentially corroborate Sean's story. But again, this is kind of like hearsay from the neighbours, like, I did read this article about a man, like, blah, blah, blah. You know, like, people just kind of make stuff up for attention all the time.
Neighbours.
I'm not saying obviously that Sean
lied. Most of mine are, so.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I think people do kind of just make stuff up.
Yeah. I would not take anything any of my neighbours said as like fact at all.
Like grain of truth.
No.
It just occurred to me. So they found the murder weapon, right?
Yeah.
Any fingerprints?
Not that was mentioned.
Yeah.
Anyway. nowhere mentioned any.
That is very strange.
That is strange.
Either they didn't find any,
or they didn't fit with what they wanted the story to be.
Yeah.
So they allegedly disappeared.
Or they just
didn't
never
take
took
them.
the fingerprints.
That's so dumb.
Or someone went there with the intention of murder, so wore gloves.
Well,
Yeah.
that's.
But then if you're doing that, why not bring your own weapon?
Yeah.
That's very like thinking, oh, they'll have something that I can use to kill someone.
But then again,
like you wouldn't think that, would you? Like if you were, well, I guess people do that, but
unless it was white.
Yeah, it could have been.
Then you just surely you just take it with you.
Exactly. Like why
unless it was the foster father and he went to be like obviously
where's he gonna take it and abandon it?
Well, it's their tool, so everyone like his fingerprints would definitely be on it. So if he left them potentially, even if it were gloves for the murder, like
and I can see why they couldn't reach a conclusion as to one way or the other, because it is like
just
who the bloody hell knows?
Like it's like where is the fingerprints? Like I don't know, DNA. Did they find anything?
Like it doesn't seem logical that someone went in and murdered her, didn't take the murder weapon with them, or bring one with them.
Exactly, or bring one. Yeah,
it is very, very strange. I think because I don't know. I just find it hard to wrap my head around. Like, what was the reason? Like, if he did murder her, what was the reason? Like why the prosecution could never have given, they could never come up with a reason as to why he would have murdered Billie-Jo. So to me that kind of says it all, that they just didn't have a reason.
And just saying that they might have had some sort of argument of some sort, use your imagination what it could have been, doesn't really sit right with anything.
I think you can look into it obviously quite a lot and analyze everything that was said, but I think there is some real issues with how the police handled the case and how evidence was handled or collected. And perhaps it was because they just wanted, obviously it's a brutal murder of a 13-year-old girl, they just want it solved. Like they just want someone behind bars so then the community can feel safe again. But I mean, that's all we have on the case. There's a whole website that you can go on, which is called justinforseanjenkins.org.uk, and it has the timeline, it has all sorts of stuff on there. Obviously it's there to work in their favour of Sian. I mean, a lot of what they say is factual and it is what's happening.
I mean, it is justice more.
And I know that over the last 24 years, Lois was very against him and has moved country since. And like they're divorced, she's remarried, or she's got another partner and she's got her daughters and stuff. And he remarried. And she's been very against Sian, understandably, if she still believes that he did it and he just got away with it. But I guess at the end of the day, you have to respect that he was acquitted and the evidence just wasn't there whether he did it or not. And I think we just will never know.
No, we can speculate, but you can find arguments on both sides, really.
Unless they reopen the case and
then actually test the evidence they might potentially have. They won't find any more, I guess. But
no, but it would be good if they did reopen the case. I think
and because you know
she deserves justice, regardless. You know.
Yeah, that's
no one. Were you just about to say no one likes an unsolved case?
But I meant justice for her, of course. That's what I meant.
Yeah, like she deserves
justice,
phrase it right. And like it can't be easy for Sian to live his life knowing that everyone, well, not everyone, but like people think that he did it or have opinions regarding it anyway, like we do right now. Like we're doing a whole podcast about it.
But this is more informative. It's I don't think we
it's hard to tell.
Like, it is. I wouldn't know. I don't know like either way.
I usually like for one or the other, but here. I'm just not.
Yeah, there's
sure.
just very like several strange things.
And
because I'm thinking to myself, on the one hand, why would he do that? And on the other hand, why would a murderer go in and behave that way? You know, taking a weapon, not bringing a weapon away. It's bizarre.
I am leaning towards, I don't know. I was going to say I'm leaning towards him not being guilty because he was acquitted, but then I'm thinking not evidence. And
exactly. Like when I was doing the research, I was like, oh, he definitely didn't do it. And then I was like, oh, maybe he did.
Actually, yeah.
Oh, maybe he didn't. And like it was literally a constant back and forth. I don't know. Did he? Didn't he? Did he? Didn't he? And you could literally lose your mind thinking about it.
What if they've done a lie detector test?
Oh yeah, there's no evidence of one being done.
Yeah,
but again, that's.
I mean, I know they're like pretty dodgy, is it? But
they could rattle your cage, though, couldn't they?
Yeah.
Into confession. So I guess that's why they still use them, because
But
your response to no, they're not. But your response to a lie detector test can say a lot. Like when they say, "Would you be willing to do a lie detector test?"
I would not.
I wouldn't.
It's because they're unreliable, regardless whether I'm guilty or innocent.
Yeah.
I know what.
To read a lie detector test.
Exactly.
They can tell me whatever they wanted.
And even if you're innocent and you fail, it gives them like obviously more
That like ammunition,
yeah, ammunition, yeah, that's right. To sort of push you and get you to confess and try all sorts of tactics. So I'm just like, no,
I just would never do it.
Ever.
No.
Get a lawyer.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like not everyone does straight away. But you
well,
don't.
No, I feel like if I was being arrested, my first thing would be, I want a lawyer.
Right now.
Apparently you have to say it in the right way, so they can't just like, I've read something somewhere.
I want to execute my right to a fair defence. Therefore, I'm
not answering any questions until I've got a lawyer here.
Yeah, you have to be like,
not answering any questions until the lawyer is present.
You have to say it in the right way, because otherwise they could just not
that's true.
it.
And up until then, it's no comment.
Yeah,
no comment.
You have to, because obviously,
even if you didn't
just need to know your rights, and you need to
they
have someone.
If any slip of the tongue, like, can be used against you.
Anything you say or do, Kuna, will be used against you in the court of law.
Yeah, anything. And you don't know what you can and can do, or what they can and can do, whether you're allowed to leave.
Yeah, I think a lot of the time in those cases, they kind of, I'm not saying they do, but I am saying they do. They kind of hope that people don't know their rights.
Yeah, they use your ignorance against you, don't they?
And it's not ignorance, I would say lack of knowledge.
Well, yeah.
Because it's just because you
That's what I mean, though. Like your ignorance is your lack of knowledge on the subject. Like these people are doing this every day.
Well,
I've never been arrested. So someone was like, someone who does this every day is like, well, this is how it works. I'd be like, okay, I wouldn't know any different.
If you say so.
If you say so.
But could I have an impartial person present? And I always have someone present. Anyway, this is very divergent. But if you ever do get arrested, make sure you ask for a lawyer.
No lie detector test.
No comments. No lie detector tests. Just basically be as uncooperative as you can be until your rights have been seen to.
Exactly. And one more point on lie detector. If you say no, you look shady. But if you say yes, if you're innocent and you pass it, you look shady. So you have nothing to lose.
Exactly. Because like lie detectors or so, even the guy that invented the lie detector was like, this is actually pretty shit. We shouldn't use this. And everyone else went, no!
But it helped us. So
let's just use it anyway. So this is this week's case. And I promise I will try not to do an unsolved case next time. But I just like to do unsolved cases because, you put that out there again for people to listen to. Potentially getting buzz around it again, and potentially they'll reinvestigate the case, and maybe, who knows.
I would like to say again that everything that was said in this episode is alleged.
Yeah, please don't sue us.
Yes.
I don't know how it works. Like, can we sue us? I never knew you could be sued for an opinion. But apparently you can.
Sneering. Right?
I think if we were presenting it,
slander.
I think if we were presenting it like, this is what happened, these are the facts, he definitely did it, and we're not saying that. we're
and
saying
he's being acquitted. So
yeah, like the court of law says he didn't do it, then he didn't do it.
like these are the facts. Draw your own conclusions.
Feel free to let us know what you think.
Yes.
If you think that he's done it or he hasn't, or
Because
just maybe use the word alleged, just in
a
case.
lot. Every other word.
I allegedly think that he allegedly did not allegedly do.
I'm on the fence.
Yeah, I'm on the fence. I don't know.
There's just not enough.
Couldn't
there.
decide. If I was the jury, I couldn't decide.
It's just there's not enough for me to have an opinion, I think.
No, there really isn't. Well, on that note, thanks so much, guys.
Thank you.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, Joe, I know you hate it.
I didn't say anything else, so thank you.
It's in your eyes. It's in their eyes.
Beautiful.
Thank you to all our listeners. Again, thanks for listening to our podcast. If you have any cases at all that you'd like to hear us chat shit about, then give us a shout.
Email us, DM us.
Yeah, I mean, you can find us on Instagram and
Good
let
old
us know.
Insta.
What'd you say?
It's a good old Insta.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's our main sort of
Yeah, I was going to say
posty
platform.
place, isn't it?
Yeah, I never check our email.
Posty place.
I never
Professional.
personally. I never check our email. I rely solely on the two of you checking it.
I see emails when I swipe them.
Brilliant.
But like if I see something from a person by its name rather than like
like an
robot.
Yeah.
It is easy just to get in touch through Instagram, though. It's more direct, isn't it?
Yeah, we'll read your messages. We'll reply because
we are very nice.
We are polite people. And if you'd like to give us any recommendations, let us know. But for now, it's going to be a goodbye from me.
Goodbye from Emily.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for the show.